Well, good evening, everybody. Been a beautiful, wonderful, wet Texas day. We're going to do something. We're going to pretend this is your church. Boy, you got a big church here. You got a great church, right? And we're going to pretend your table group is an extended family made up of at least 3 or 4 generations. Now, we asked you to eat with at least somebody 20 years your difference at your table. Does every table have at least somebody 20 years difference? Every table? If not, there are some children here. Just grab them and take them away with you. The wisdom of the elder and the wonder of the child are 2 priceless gifts that belong in the same space at least some of the time. The wisdom of the elder and the wonder of the child are 2 priceless, precious gifts that belong together at least some of the time. The church is the only true cross-generational place for most of America's kids where every week 6 living generations are gathered under the same roof. The church is the only place for most of America's kids where the boomers and builders and busters and Xers and millennials and whatever you call the next 3 groups on the way are all under the same roof. And what do we do the moment they come into the door? We send the babies to the nursery, these kids over here, the teenagers over there, the young adults. Oh, that's right, we don't have any. We've got a gift. And you know what? Every age has gifts we need. And every age has needs we can gift if we are wise enough to see the stewardship of the treasures that are around us. I don't know, Deke, if you knew Raymond Melheim, but he was probably in your seminary class. So my dad was in Deke's seminary class in the old Norwegian Synod. Yeah. You don't find people like this. They're there, though. They're there, though. What are the gifts of the elder that you can't buy in a workbook? Right? The wisdom of the elder. The wonder of the child. I got to meet Annika. Where's Annika right now? She helped paint. She did all of the stars on the painting out there. My goodness, and she had great insights. You can't buy that in a workbook. The beauty, depth, and wonder of the elder and the child. What if we decided we would find some way, some strange and a wonderful way to collide the 2 groups that are rarely in each other's sacred space? And we would take that space we have in our church, maybe prime time, which would mean Sunday morning or Wednesday night, and we would find a way to get them together and collide. I do a lot of reading in chaos theory, in complexity theory, and in creativity. My favorite author in creativity right now is Stephen Johnson. He's got some really good TED Talks. His book, Where Good Ideas Come From, talks about the adjacent possible. The adjacent possible. Just by putting 2 things that normally don't go together in the same space, something new can happen that would never happen before. And that's where most innovation happens. That's where most innovation and creativity comes from. You got your chocolate on my peanut butter. Oh, whoever thought of that? You know, when Herb Kelleher started Southwest Airlines, one of the first things that he did was send his baggage handlers to the Indianapolis 500. This is in his book, Going Nuts. One of the first things he did is, I know it costs money if planes don't get turned around, click, 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 click. So who are the fastest people who turn things around? Let me simply put baggage handlers at the Indianapolis 500, and Southwest Airlines took off when it took off because they were able to turn planes around by putting 2 things that just don't go together in the same space. Do you know what your brain does on a good night's sleep? In 6 different phases, if you can get yourself your 8 hours, which your brain needs. You remember, rapid eye movement, rapid eye movement, rapid eye movement. It takes the new things of the day, all the new stuff, symbolically bouncing all kinds of creative, strange things against it. Your brain turns off external stimuli in favor of internal stimuli on a good night's sleep. And after rapid eye movement, all these crazy things, throw a lot of spaghetti on the wall, maybe some of it will stick. Then it goes into the memory bank to try to pull out something that connects with it. I just love David's talk today about connections, connecting your story to God's story. Oh, my Lord. How brilliant is that? What if we could do that every week in every church and every night in every home? What if we decided we were going to collide two groups that are often pushed to the sidelines in our society? What lousy stewardships. No enduring society in the history of the world has ever pushed the elders away. Never. They don't last. Societies don't last who don't revere their elders. Push them over here. Keep the kids in the nursery because they're loud. Oh, by the way, a toddler, they can't be learning anything anyway in an adult setting, right? Well, just watch a toddler's brain on a brain scan, operating at 1/250,000th of a second. After puberty, you're operating on 1/150,000th of a second. The toddler is almost twice as efficient in learning things. Just try to swear in front of a toddler and tell me they're not learning. They're not listening, right? They're almost twice as efficient. And before puberty, do you know Henry Kissinger was 12 when he came to America? His brother is 10, and his brother doesn't have a German accent. Kissinger has the strongest German accent you'll ever hear. And his brother talks like he came from Kansas City. Yeah. I call this the Kissinger effect. You had better get to them before the cement hardens. Not only does the toddler need to be in this space, you put a toddler on grandma's lap, and magic happens. When a little pudgy hand and the old wrinkled hand go hand in hand, magic happens. Yeah. By the way, it builds up grandma's dopamine level. Do you know that? Dopamine, the pleasure drug. I want more of this. Dopamine that builds up your immune system. Grandma won't be as sick. Grandma's under stress. Her organs get inflamed, and you give her lots of dopamine, she won't be as sick. The elder needs the child, and the child needs the elder. There are studies right now about honeybees in the hive after they've been retired. You Google retiring honeybees. Species of honeybees assign the elder to care for the larva once they're done flying. They take away their driver's license, and they got something to do. Right? And you know what happens? Those who take care of the babies live 30% longer because they're needed and they're valued. Yeah, wow. I think the teenager is needed in this space too. Teenagers are honest. Do you know what the malls tried to do to get rid of teenagers? They invented something called a mosquito frequency. Have you read about this? Google it. They started playing at a high frequency, an annoying sound that subconsciously pushed teenagers away. And now some app companies are selling those as ringtones so parents can't hear when the kid's phone is ringing. Samuel in the temple, Eli couldn't hear, but Samuel could. Eli had to point out to him, be listening, something's coming. We need to hear what the teenager hears. We don't know what God is saying to a whole swath about the future if we can't hear what the teenagers hear. We need the teenager. And by the way, the teenager needs a second opinion, and a third opinion, and a fourth opinion. Grandma and Ma might have complete opposite advice for the teenager, but they both have her best interest at heart. And she needs to hear multiple redundant mentors. Multiple redundant mentors. The word redundant, oh, that's a bad word, right? Not if you work in computers. you better have a redundant system. You better have a backup. And you really want to back up to the backup. What if your church was a backup to mom and dad? Whoever thought a mother should be able to raise 1 or 2 or 3 kids all by themselves? No enduring society in the history of the world has left a mother alone to raise kids. What if your church was the backup? And the backup to the backup, and the backup to the backup to the backup. Now on Star Trek, if the captain gets out of the bridge chair and goes to the bridge, or out of the bridge and heads somewhere, and the first officer sits down there, backup. If the first officer gets killed by a Klingon, second officer, backup to the backup to backup. No one goes in without backup. What if 3 years from today you could say in our church, we do not let a single parent try to raise this kid alone. We got aunts, we got uncles, we got grandparents. We're just not going to allow this. Not going to do it. Backup to the backup to the backup. Aunts, uncles, grandmas, kids, toddlers, teenagers. Every age has gifts. Every age has needs. We're going to try a little something, and then I'll explain it tomorrow on my Into the Wilderness time. We're going to pretend that you have found a way to get tables together, maybe during the summer, and you're going to have a nice meal, or maybe for kickoff of Sunday school next year and do it all the way up to Reformation Day, or maybe during Lent and you're going to have it over a meal, have some Lentzania, okay? Okay. Doing it around a meal, not a bad idea. The best Augsburg Fortress book I have read in years is In the Beginning Was the Meal by Hans Tausing. You read that book, In the Beginning Was the Meal. And he points out how Holy Communion and the whole koinonia meal really came out of the Greco-Roman culture in the Mediterranean, where groups of people from the same culture, if they found themselves living in Ephesus or Philippi or whatever, and from the same guilds, like the tent-making guild or the merchant guild or the shipping guild, they would make sure that they had a banquet every so often, usually at least every month. And you know what they would do at that banquet? They would laugh, and they would eat, and they would toast each other. And if they, in a world where most people were never buried, they were thrown in ditches if you didn't have enough money to have a real funeral. In that world, they would toast each other, and they would say, if I die, will you bury me? And will you raise a glass to me? And do this in remembrance of me? If I die, my wife and children, she'll probably have to be a prostitute. My kids will be sold into slavery. And this is the truth. And her family won't take her back. Will you take care of my wife and children? I'll take care of yours. But these were men at a banquet, and they were all one nationality, and they all had enough money to be in the club. And here comes these Christians. And you know who came to the koinonia meals? Jews and Greeks, slaves and free, male and female. The only females at the guild banquets were consorts. And when we read, oh, no Jew, no Greek, no male, no female, we think, oh yeah, that's the way it is. No, it was never that way. And in the whole world, it's usually not that way today. And here these radical, as in of the root, these radical Christians decided we're going to put the people together, all of God's people who are one in Christ Jesus. And that's what changed the world. Maybe you want to start your reformation and your radical, the word radical and radish both mean root, right? Maybe you want to start your radical thinking with table groups of children and elders and teens and moms and dads and everybody you can pull in. As that great theologian of the church, Neil Diamond, said, pack up the babies and grab the old ladies, everyone. What if you said, we're going to put them together, we're going to collide them, we're going to have the adjacent possible, and we're going to do it every week at church, and then we're going to ask them to do it every night in every home. And if there's a single adult, guess what? We're going to FaceTime or Skype in or call in our highs and lows because we're going to all pray for each other. We're going to know them, And we're going to pray for each other. Well, we're going to pretend you're a table group now. And maybe your church only has this many people, or maybe it has this many, or maybe it has this many. By the way, you start doing this, everybody's going to say, how do you get invited to that party? That's how it was in the early Christian world. I want to get in on that. How do you get invited to that party? So I want you to turn to someone near you, and one of you has to pretend you are an age under 20. You can pick the age. For some of you, it won't be hard to act that way. And the other can be the age that they are. So find a partner and share a high and a low, one-on-one. And if you're playing 4-year-old, try to think of what a 4-year-old high or low would be. Okay, you got that? Ready? Go! High and low, high and low. Go, go, go. Okay, stop. Did you learn a little something from each other? Was it fun? All right, you have to share your partner's high or low with the table. Ready? You share, can you turn that down? You share your partner's high and low at the table. Ready? Go. Okay, stop. What just happened here? What just happened here? Lots of talking. What else? What happened? Laughing. Interchange. Connections. Bonding. Insight. Wow. Free drugs. That's what happened here. Remember? Message came from your brain. How fast? 100 yards a second. 100 yards a second. Down to the end of your nerve cells. Pop. Went to chemicals, jumped over the synapse, bond, and all through your body. 100 yards a second. I feel good. Free drugs. Your church can dispense free drugs every week. It doesn't cost the budget a nickel. And they're going to want to come back for more. So are you going to put that free drug sign on the parking lot? Yeah. What if you said, this isn't just going to be what we do. This is who we are. We have time for each other. We have attention for each other. The currency today is not money. It's time and attention. The currency today is not money. You can always make more money. You will never make more time. Yeah. And attention? Attention is the biggest problem in American schools today. I was just in the Garland School District, and we were talking to all these teachers, paying attention. We say pay attention. It's the currency, right? Why should I pay attention to anything? What if I'm engaged? What if I'm drawn out? The word educare, education, means to draw out, not to cram in. If all you do is cram in and nothing comes out, spiritual constipation does result. Let it go, right? You got to draw out. If the system is set up where there's a one-way communication, the television era, I talk, you listen. I perform, you sing along. That might work for the television era, but you're burying every year another 8% of the television era, and you're birthing another 8% of the post-television era. We're going to talk about that and do some work tomorrow on what does it mean to try to give a television era engagement to a post-television era person. They're not going to be there. In the television era, you could do two things at once. You had the Reader's Digest on the toilet, right? Tell me the truth. You could do two things at once. Today, they're on the internet, they're on the phone, they got their music on, they're doing this and this. You try to take three things away, and it's like they can't even imagine that, right? Yeah. If you want to engage, you put one-on-one. Now, this is a nice, sneaky little technique because the extrovert and the introvert engage in different ways. They learn in different ways, and they think in different ways. The introvert is often a deep-thinking person, but they may not be drawn out unless it's set up for them to draw out. And that's why one-on-one is brilliant, because the introvert can more easily be drawn out. And it might take weeks, for some people months, for them to really be honest. But after they realize this is a safe space, this is a sacred space, this is set aside for something holy, after a while, they'll be drawn out. And you get the deep thinking person who thinks before they talk, sharing. You're working on their weakness and their strength. The extrovert, on the other hand, their weakness is they never shut up and listen. They don't know what they think until they start talking. Oh yeah, that's what I think, right? They think, yeah, their weakness is they don't listen. But you put people one-on-one, and the extrovert has to start listening. Especially if the accountability is built in that in a few minutes at this table, I'm going to share what my partner just said. And after a few weeks, they will learn to shut up and listen. Oh my Lord, what a wonderful thing to set up a place where every age has gifts and every age has needs. And around this table and around this food and in this family, the best Best definition of the word. Our word family, familia is the Latin, familiar. In the Greek, it's oikos. We get our word economy from it. We get our word ecology from it. The oikos was the household, and it was always cross-generational. By the way, I'm done using the word intergenerational. I want to put the cross in the middle of everything. I dare you to just start saying Cross+Gen. Just use that. Let's pound that into the church's awareness and the society's awareness. What if 3 years from today, when people thought of your church, they thought that's a place where the elders valued and listened to, and their stories, which you cannot buy in a workbook, they're shared. And the child is valued in every age, and the cross is right in the middle. Wouldn't that be beautiful if we reinvented what it meant to be a family? And of course, we have elders and children. Well, if you think this is fun, I dare you to try this for 40 days at your church. If you can't do 40 days, just 6 weeks. If you can't manage 6 weeks of an experiment to lean into the future, just try it a month and a half. Right? So, okay, we can't do 40 days, but maybe now that's too much, 6 weeks. We'll do it a month and a half. A Princeton study that the 40 Days of Purpose was built on suggests that that's about how long it takes to rewire a brain, to start your neurons growing in different ways. And yeah, I think we have to rewire something. What if people thought of your church as the place where every age was gifted, every age's needs were taken into account, and this is the place where people get around a table and laugh and learn and love and then hang on to each other ferociously in prayer. We're not going to let this go. And what if every elder in your church was called at 8 o'clock before they took their meds and went to sleep every night by some folks who happen to know their highs and lows and miss them if they're not there? And what if every young adult in your church had a real family? You can't buy that in society. The riches that come from both directions. What if they had that? And what if every single mom had aunts and uncles, every single dad, kids and cousins looking out for them and praying for them? What a gift that would be. I think we can do this. I think we can. Sunday school as an institution is a pretty new thing. Did you know that? Sunday school was created for street children in England during the gin epidemic. Had there been no cheap gin in England in 1700s, late 1700s, there would be no Sunday school today. Did you know that? Had there been no cheap gin and shoplifting in England in the 1700s, you would not have a Sunday school today. Here's what happened. For most of Christian history, and before that from Judeo-Christian history, Deuteronomy 6, keep these words which I command you today in your heart, recite them to your children, talk about them when you're home, when you're away, when you lie down, when you rise, bind them as a sign on your hand, fix them as an emblem on your forehead, write them on the doorpost of your house, write them on your gates. It was so clear who's in charge of this. Yeah, that is traditional Christian education, by the way. What you're doing right now is just something new and it's not working. I'm sorry. For thousands of years, one model of Christian education grew a group of small, frightened fishermen into the largest faith community in the world. That's a pretty successful story. And then from 1780 until about the mid-1800s, a mission for heathen street children during the days of the great missionary movements. We're sending missionaries to China. We're sending missionaries to Africa. We're sending missionaries to South America. And some wonderful Methodist women said, what about the mission field right on our streets? The quote, heathen hordes roaming our streets, unquote. And so a newspaper publisher named Robert Raikes was compelled to go out and look at what was happening on Sundays. This is industrial England. Think Oliver Twist. Think Dickens, Charles Dickens, and Christmas Carol. Picture the street children. Picture, you got to pick a pocket or two, boys, you got to pick a pocket or two. Okay, picture that, okay? The farms had emptied out, and the factories were filling up. The cities were growing by leaps and bounds, and the parish system, where people's names were recorded for generations on parish books, where this is my home, these are my people, these are my homies, this is my oikos, this is our economic unit that takes care of each other, with grandparents helping with the babies and everybody in between. That was all gone. It was gone just like that. They move into the cities. The parents are working in the factories, and the kids are working in the factories 6 days a week. And thanks to gin, a new cheap distilled beverage, which you can get very, very drunk, very, very cheap in a very short time, the parents on Sundays are rip-roaring drunk. This is in the chapter in the red book, Let's Kill Sunday School Before It Kills a Church, if you want to read it. We have original sources of writings of what was going on, taken from the original writers. The flop houses in England were upset. The prostitution houses were upset. They weren't making enough money because everybody was drunk. If you couldn't get enough money for a bottle of gin, you could rent a gin-soaked rag, and you could rent some hay to sleep it off on. And on Sundays, the kids are running wild in the streets. This is where Sunday school came from. Robert Rakes started a 3-year secret experiment, a secret incubator. And he got some people to take kids off the streets and teach them basic catechism and basic Bible lessons. Now, most of them were illiterate. So it occurred to them, we need to teach literacy and morality. That's what Sunday school started for, literacy and morality. Now think about what else is happening in the world at the same time. Across the Channel, the French Revolution, the same deplorable conditions in France, but how is France reacting? The teenagers are turning into young thugs who are grabbing people and chopping their heads off. The business community of England gets behind the Sunday school movement. We got to fund this or we're going to be in the revolution like France. Across the Channel, but across the pond in America, revolution. There's revolution everywhere. Everything's falling apart. We got to do something to get these kids off the streets, okay? So they fund the Sunday school. And Robert Rakes, in some of his writings, says, we grabbed boys and tied them to logs to listen to our Christian education lessons. I have the direct resources from this if you want to footnote it. Yeah. Boy, that sounds like a real fun Sunday school. Grab the boys off the streets, tie them to logs. They bribed the girls with pennies and ginger cookies to listen to their lessons. They taught them literacy and morality. And you know what started happening? Beautiful things started happening. There are records of Sunday schools growing from city to city to city, to region to region to region, from hundreds to thousands to tens of thousands to millions within a few decades, millions spreading from England all across the English Empire, to India, to South America, to Asia, to all over the place. And children are reading for the first time. There's one record of one of the early Sunday school supporters going up to Ireland and watching a child lead their grandfather to Christ by reading to him the Bible for the first time he'd ever heard it. Beautiful. Amazing what this Sunday school did. Jump ahead in time. Get about to Teddy Roosevelt's era, okay? And right before the Civil War, no Christian parent would put their kid in a Sunday school. If you had said, we'd like your kid in our Sunday school, they would have thought you were insulting them. What, do you think I'm a heathen? You think I'm an illiterate, immoral heathen? No Christian parent would put their kid in a Sunday school. That is clearly for the street children. And by the way, if you do a Sunday school, you're doing something called, quote, Sabbath breaking. The Church of England hauls in their priests and says, if you allow a Sunday school in here, you're fired. We will not go against the Bible. That is clearly Sabbath breaking. Jump ahead in time. World War II. Baby boom. GIs come home and they're starting making babies all over the place. Babies, babies, babies all over the place. And we need more schools. So if you look at the schools that were built after World War II, nice big brick schools, long halls, first grade here, second grade here, third grade here, fourth grade here. We better get a professional to teach because the parents don't know how to teach this stuff. So we're going to have somebody else teach most of the important topics. Driver's ed, health ed, sex ed, Mr. Ed. All the eds are going to be taught by somebody who knows what they're doing, right? We need a professional, right? They don't. Parents say no. We'll just take your kids. That's fine. We'll do it for you. And if you look at the churches that were built and the education wings of the churches that were built at the same time, they looked just like the schools. Nice long halls, brick building. And it occurred to them, let's put the first graders here and the second graders here and the third graders here and the fourth graders here. And let's do it for the parents because, we're the professionals. We know all this stuff, right? Yeah. And so Sunday school as an institution is only about my dad and your age as we understand it today. And in this time, it has taken the parents out of the equation. And the most important time for Christian education, all the way back to Deuteronomy, when you lie down and when you rise, and neurologically what we understand, the most important time of your day for meaning making, we have taken it out of the hands who have access to them when they lie down and when they rise. The people who have the most at stake have little to do with faith education. What if you said, we're going to do a meal. We're going to do a meal and we're going to have parents and kids in the same space. Imagine that, parents and kids in the same space. Talking about stuff that really matters and trying to apply text to context. We'll have the preacher on Sunday unveil the Bible story. Hopefully he or she will do it well and, do it relevant. And Karl Barth, the Reformed theologian, said, enter the pulpit with the Bible in one hand and the newspaper in the other. In other words, text, context, get relevant or get out of the pulpit, right? Yeah. What if we were able to get every parent to enter every night with the Bible in one hand and their child's life in the other? The word seminary is just the word for seed bed. What if every home was a seminary? The best graduate schools in the world do mostly case studies. Let's get to real cases and let's figure out what we would do. What if every night in every home 3 years from today, every kid is doing case studies? A graduate school for Christian discipleship, mission, and life happening in your church every week at church at a prime time place and every night in every home. Wow. That might be quite a church. I hired a CEO from Buffalo 10 years ago, and Brad had been he sold canned chicken first, so he knew some marketing, and then he went to work for Mentholatum Deep Heating, and then he went for Fisher-Price Toys, and his marketing job was to try to figure out how to make $3 worth of plastic look like $30 worth of toy. This was like just a great, great guy who understood marketing. And he understood you have to sell them something that they want or convince them why they want it, right? The French didn't know they stunk until somebody invented perfume, right? That's right, okay? What do parents want? Some of them will say, well, I want my kid to be happy. You know what? I don't want my kid to be happy. Happy, happening, happenstance. Happiness comes from what happens around you. I want them to have joy. I want them to have resilience. I want them to see when they're in slavery in Egypt and to be able to lead the host of captives out of Egypt and to be able to get through the wilderness and be able to get on the mountain and be able to hear God when they're on the mountain and then be able to lead when everybody goes back and wants to go back and start worshiping the golden calf, which they will. There will always be a counter-revolution whenever there's a real revolution. There will always be. I want to create a living, loving, powerful, wise, determined, resilient disciple of Jesus Christ. When the world is going to hell, they're able to say, you know what? Yeah, go to hell and back. That's what Jesus did. When the world is cutting itself and beating itself and hurting itself and thinking it's not worth anything, I want to raise a child who's able to say, you know what? Somebody already went to hell for you. His name is Jesus. You don't have to. Come with me. Let's get out of this hell. That's what I want to raise. And I can't do it in 45 minutes on a Sunday morning. I could do it really, really well if every week my church had great preaching that was relevant and a space for the wisdom of the elder and the wonder of the child to collide the adjacent possible of case studies every week, highs and lows, what's going on, and then to bring them to God in prayer and to be in each other's hearts and each other's prayers every night before you go to bed. That's what I want. Yeah. I think you want that too. And tomorrow we're going to just try to figure out something, how to make every Sunday a party. It might be as simple as highs and lows, and it just might be attractive and meaningful to the young adult who's also starving for real community. See you tomorrow.